Hello everyone, I hope you guys are having a great day. So for today's video, we are going to be covering the games that I play in the US Amateurs 2024. For your information, I will put the link to the tournament descriptions as well as the time format in the description down below. Overall, I think that I did pretty well. While I also learned quite a bit on what I should as well. I would support one of my school team going into this tournament, so I was expecting to play a lot of high-rated players. Thankfully, in the first round, we got an easy pairing where the board one is only 1700, or to be accurate, 1671. My opponent is very old, and after some research after the game, I saw that he hasn't played any chess tournaments in 13 years. Yes, the last time that he played an official tournament was 13 years ago in the exact tournament, the US Amateurs 2011. But back to my thoughts before the game. Since I knew that he was sort of lower rated, it is a perfect opportunity to test out my new black repertoire since my last tournament if he plays e4. However, he started with d. I was a little sad. To be honest, I was a little sad when I saw d4 since I can't test out the modern. So then I was determined to use my main weapon against d4. So I play d5, expecting a queen's gambit. However, to my surprise, he played knight to c3. And I was not expecting to see it, and I was really wondering where this is going. If you're familiar with this move on move 2, you should know where this is going. So, knight to f6 and bishop to f4. I mean, of course he's going to play bishop f4, going into a Jobava London. And before getting the information that he hasn't played for 13 years, I was pretty shocked. I was like, huh. So he's learning, or he just trying out some, Jobava London theory, because I know they wasn't popular before. But luckily, I actually have preparation against both the London system, Standard London, and this Jobava London. So I just went with my plan. So starting with simply fighting the center. And this is the best move to fight against the London center. The London center, in my opinion. And white respond with e3. And here I went a6. So this is the line that I chose after looking at many ways to play against the Jobava London. This is not the most optimal way to play, since it actually allows d takes c5, which is the best move by engine. However, in the London spirit, no one would take on c5. And a6 simply defends against all knight b5 shenanigans. Can comfortably play knight c6. So now he plays h3, prevents bishop g4, and it is actually understandable since bishop g4 is actually one of the main line against the Jobava London. However, that was never my intended move, because with a6, it's actually not good to play bishop g4 anyway. So it becomes pretty much a wasted move. So here I just comfortably play knight c6. And now you notice there's no knight b5 anymore because I already prevented this. And he went knight f3. With the knight on f3, now all the king size stuff with like g4 and all that stuff is simply gone. And now I just start developing with bishop f5. This is not like the very best move. I think this is probably the third or the fourth best move by engine. However, by doing this, you won't have to deal with a bad bishop. Because the best line here is just go e6. And say bishop e2 or bishop d3. Then you just go b5. And let's say, the opponent knows to play a4. It actually doesn't matter. Now you have queen b6 because there's no knight a4. So, but mostly they won't see it, and if they just go with the typical London stuff, they will play. I'll just play b5, and now my queen side is very expanded. However, there's a problem with this light square bishop still, as this is now becoming a French bishop, and of course this is much better, slightly like much better by engine, and it's slightly better for black. However, I am not very comfortable in this position, so I will probably try it out at some point, but I just like bishop f5. The knight on f3, there's not a lot going on here. So he played bishop d, neutralizing the diagonal, and I just drop back to g6, and now this position is completely equal. So now white castle, I play e6, and now I have a great position, a very comfortable position that I really like. So rook e1 and bishop d6. So the point of bishop d6 is to simply just trade the bishop off, since the star square bishop is the spirit of the London. Even if it's not the most optimal move, after trading, it's still pretty much equal. White is slightly better, but it's not by like a margin or anything. I was actually a little bit afraid of knight e5 here when I went bishop d. However, he went after e5. So after this move, I have this. Since I have like this piece structure, I am actually not afraid of bishop f6, and I can actually take back with the pawn. I don't really care. And here the threat now is to go e4. So my reaction is that I go c takes d4. Now note here, actually I did analyze a bit for what happens after knight e5. So knight e5, c takes d4, c takes d4, and I take on e5, bishop takes e5, knight takes e5, rook takes e5. Even though this is equal, I have a very comfortable position, and sure, white is better, but it seems that my opponent probably won't like play well enough, and I will definitely have a chance to win here. So yeah, so to go back to this position, I took on d4, and pawn takes is pretty much forced, because say you take with a knight, then I take back, and then pawn takes, and it's the same thing. So there's still no e4 happening. So after pawn takes, I castle, and now he finally took the bishop on g6. I took back with a pawn, and now he went knight e5. And I was feeling weird because, you know, why would you go knight e5 after trading the bishops here? So I didn't really understand the move. The only reason I could come up with this is that maybe white wants to play f4. But still, it actually doesn't make that much sense. He could have played it before trading. So I don't see the point here. I mean, I guess he's scared of knight takes e4, but it actually doesn't work. This is just bishop takes. So go back to this position. Again, now that we have a double pawn on a g file, now I don't really have to care if white takes a bishop and takes the knight on f6 anymore. So I just went queen c7, putting pressure on the knight on e5. And actually f4 doesn't work here because of knight takes e4 winning a free pawn. And if queen takes, bishop c5 wins the queen, easy work. So f4 doesn't work. If it doesn't check, I mean, if white doesn't take, then black is just upper queen pawn, and this game is gonna be over soon. So what I was expecting was knight takes c6, and after pawn takes c6, I start going c5 and pressure the center. So say something like queen d3, c5, or if white goes knight c2, planning to go c3, I'm still going to push c5 and then c3, and now I can start applying pressure on the queen side, like rook f to b8. But my opponent first took the knight, and I was like, okay, sure. I just take back, And now this pawn is attack. This knight, sorry. The knight is attack. So now, what is white going to do? And to my surprise, he just moved the knight back. I mean, after this move, I know that I'm just definitely better because, I mean, the best move is just take. Like, moving the knight back is just like a waste of tempo. You went knight e5 and then you went back to f3. It doesn't make any sense. Like, just pawn takes and then c5, c6. Again. So, yeah. After knight f3, so here, I know I'm better, but I wasn't sure on what to do because I don't really have any. I wasn't seeing anything clear until I started looking at the C file. I was calculating if I have enough time to apply pressure on the C2 pawn, and while I don't, with best play from white, I actually don't have enough time to apply the pressure. I am still a lot better due to my pawn structure, and I have a very nice diagonal control by this bishop over here. So after thinking for a little bit, I went with trying to pressure the queen side on the c file. So now my plan is to put one of these rook on the c file and then apply pressure. I was calculating knight d2 and knight e2, and I know that knight e2 is definitely the best move here since it allows c3, reconnecting the pawns. So like what I'm calculating is knight e2, and the thing is if you just move rook fc8, then just c3, so doesn't make any sense. So I just go b5, and he still has to go c3 anyway. And now I have a very nice grip and attack on the queen side, so now I can actually just push b4 actually, and then start applying pressure. But okay, go back to the move. He actually went knight d2, which is the other option. But now I just start applying pressure on the c file. So now I went with rook fc8. Now he doesn't have any tempo to move the knight out anymore. So this is a trivial matter because actually it does make a slight difference on which rook I should move. Not that it matters, but it depends. But this is where like you have to know what you're trying to do, because the reason I moved the rook after c8 is clear because I want to put everything on the queen side and just try to send a full attack. Whereas if you put a rook ac8, sure, it's still really good and it's actually better, but it's by engine move and it's just like calculation. There's no like real strategy on it, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And here it just went quick, trying to, I guess, protect the knight and also attacking my pawn, putting some pieces on the king side. But with this current structure, I am very safe. So I went with king g7, simply protecting the pawn, and now there should be nothing going on. And here, the white made a pretty big mistake in my opinion. But it's also big, like, by the engine is also a pretty big mistake. So rook ac1. This move seems to try to protect c2 and move the knight on e2. However, it fails due to bishop to f4, which is why I play in the game. Now, the best move here is just simply knight c to b1. However, in any case, I actually am guaranteed to win a pawn, and that actually would be enough to win me the game. So I just go knight c4, and now after rook e2, I just take on b2. And I have a great position. Or here, it just simply move out of the pin with rook cd1, and now I just went with the plan. Bishop takes e2, rook takes e2, and then knight c4, rook to d3, knight takes b2, rook to e3, d3, So here I know that I am completely winning, because in this sort of like London system, if I'm just up one single pawn, this game should be over. However, there's actually one move that I was really afraid, which is knight takes d5. a sort of desperate move to open up and attack on my king. I had that move in mind since I moved forward, which is all the way back here. I already have some sort of like thinking that he might sacrifice because I saw that in the whole line, white just lose a pawn for absolutely no compensation. So yeah, I went back to here. I was looking at knight c4 simply winning a tempo, but then I wasn't sure. So I just went with b5, which is not a bad move. And note here, knight d5 actually doesn't work in all of my calculation line, and yes, it doesn't. But to my surprise, white still sacks the knight with knight takes e5. I mean, it's fair because there's actually no better move that white can do in this position. This is just pretty much lost because all I'm going to do now is just try to push b4, open up this queen side, and I'm going to gobble all the pawns and then go ahead and win the game. So knight takes c5, e takes d5, and the whole point is now rook e7. And the goal here is to play queen takes e5, applying pressure on f7. And here, I thought for a little bit because, so I play queen d6, which is a very safe move. But note here, the best move is actually just to simply take on c2. Because as I said, the attack actually doesn't work. Due to queen d5, I just play rook to f8. There's absolutely nothing. If rook b7, trying to stack the other rook, you can just attack the queen right away. The queen actually doesn't have any good move, good square on the diagonal or on the file here. So here the best move is just take on f7, like grab a pawn back. But white is still completely losing. White just straight up busted here. Because after this, I just go 93, and there's probably nothing to be done here. But I went with queen d6, and the evaluation, after I looked with the engine, it went from -4 to -2. However, I am still completely winning because I am simply up too much material. And here, the best move is rook to e6. This is why I calculated. So I saw this, and then after takes, I have 2 rooks and a knight for a queen, which is more than enough to win the game. So, but actually, the reason this position is -2 is because my knight is on b2. If my knight was on c4, this was probably -3. So, because it allows queen a3. And it actually is a double threat, threatening the knight and queen e7. So after knight c4, queen e7, king h6, queen takes e6. Black is still winning, but white has a lot of counterplay now. And now I have to play, I don't know, much safer in order to not allow perpetual first of all and then still be winning. So I guess I should have moved the knight back with tempo, right? With the knight c4 stuff, so none of this stuff can happen. However, luckily my opponent didn't do that. My opponent just went rook b7. And he somehow thought that I would allow the stacked rook on the 7th rank. I mean, sure. But of course, I would never let that happen. So I just went rook e8, and this position is busted. And my opponent just resigned here. Because what do? So if you trade the rooks, I'm just simply up a knight, and the attack is over. If you went rook b1, I just go knight c4, and you don't have the attack is also over. So anyways, our team ended up winning with a sweep 4-0, leading a very strong start to this tournament. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.